Hey folks, and welcome to another video of mine. In today's video we are going to be taking a look at the game Remember Me. Now I don't know how many of you remember you see the pun there, how many of us remember this game called Remember Me. Now the reason why I've kind of thought about making this video is because of the fact that I recently got myself a gaming laptop, a mid-range gaming laptop, the Asus ROG Strix G15 Advantage Edition from 2021. It's not the 2022 version. But what this has given me an opportunity to do is to visit some of these older titles from way back, in 2011, 2012, 2013, and to be able to play them on the PC. Now, some of these titles, they are still available on Xbox. For instance, Remember Me, I think it was officially released on the PlayStation 3 and on the Xbox 360, and this was way back in 2013, and it was also released on the PC back then. It came out in the summer of 2013, and it's a game developed by Capcom and a company called Dontnod Entertainment. And the reason why I especially chose to make a video on this particular game is because, hey, just look at the screen. This game looks gorgeous on the PC. And one of the key differences that I found out while gaming on PC is the stark difference in the quality of the textures on the PC. Now, the textures really pop on the PC version of this game. I know I have a PlayStation 5 as well, and I have an Xbox Series S. But when it comes to these older titles, I think these older titles on the consoles still have some kind of an anti-aliasing issue. You do have jaggy still, even if it's the PlayStation that you're playing this on. And on the Xbox Series X or the S, if the game has been optimized, like if it's received the FPS boost, then it's all fine. The game looks really sharp. But if the game has not received an FPS boost, then in those cases, the game definitely looks old, especially because of the textures, especially because of the anti-aliasing. But on the PC, all those issues are negated, and the textures here look sharp, crisp. And if I would not have told you that this game originally came out in 2013, I think some of you could have believed me when I said that, hey, this game released in like 2018 or 2019, because it could easily pass off as a game which has recently been released. I mean, take a look at those building structures. Now, I don't mean to exaggerate here, but when I saw the texture quality on these buildings, I was immediately reminded of the buildings in the Unreal Engine 5 demo, the Matrix demo. Some of the textures and some of the buildings even look like that, if you really ask me. So it is surprising that a game this old from 2013 looks this good on the PC. And that is one of the biggest differences that I've found while gaming on the PC. The texture quality. Because when it comes to the performance, now the Xbox Series S, the Xbox Series S, well, it's come to such a stage now that in terms of the performance, they do not disappoint. You can now game on the Xbox Series X and S and even on the PlayStation 5 at a smooth 60 FPS. Now, speaking of FPS, on this game, with all my settings cranked up, I was comfortably getting between 40 to 45 FPS on this game. Now, that's a stable 40 to 45 FPS. I know it's not 60 FPS, but hey, that's all the details really cranked up. Now, I saw some of the review videos of this particular game, especially on GameSpot as well. I believe they were reviewing the console the console version of this game. And on those videos, you can clearly see the difference in the texture quality and how it kind of shows its age, although, those videos are actually quite old. But the PC really makes this game look absolutely stunning. And if I talk about how stunning this game looks, every single corner of this game has been thoughtfully designed. Whether it's the texture of the stones on the floor or the surface, as you can see out here, whether it's these colorful posters, the buildings look fabulous, by the way, and they look so much like a game from maybe even 2020 or 2022. Everything really stands out in terms of the texture, in terms of the level design, it is really a very, very beautiful game to look at. Now, speaking of the level design, where it kind of disappoints you is how you cannot take advantage of the beautiful world that you are in. What do I mean by that? This is not an open world game. This means that your movement in this beautiful Neo Paris is kind of limited. You can only access certain areas of this level. So it's not an open world game is all I can say. And that's a shame because if you could have taken advantage of this game, and if this game with all these levels would have been a game like, let's say, Assassin's Creed, the Assassin's Creed series, then man, it would have been so much of a, you could say, a game changer. And especially considering that this game came out in 2013. Again, take a look at that background, for instance. You do have a lot of platforming elements on this game because this game has, you could say, a mixture of Tomb Raider, the older Prince of Persia games. So it's kind of, these games coming together, a harmony of those games. And then there are combat elements as well. I think combat elements are somewhat like the Batman games, the Arkham series, but not entirely like that. Now, I'm going to speak about the combat in a short bit. But combat is, I would say, not an area where this game would kind of shine. I mean, the game's beauty lies in its level design, in its character creation, even in its storytelling. I thought the storytelling was absolutely fabulous. And speaking of the story, let's talk about that. But before we get on to the story, just take a look at that cathedral type building in the background. Now, tell me if that doesn't remind you of the Unreal Engine 5 demo. Now that's how good this game looks. Now, I did mention that I'm going to talk about the plot of the game as well. So let's quickly discuss that. Now, the game's plot, it focuses on Nilin. So you're the protagonist of the game, a memory hunter who is working for this underground resistance called the Errorists. When the game starts, you'll find yourself in a position where you've been stripped of all your memories by this mega corporation that you're going up against. The name of that corporation is Memorize. And you have a mysterious voice on the phone. And there's this character called Edge who refers to you as his sister. So, together with Edge, this voice on the phone, you are on this quest to bring down this mega corporation called Memorize. And in the process, also recover your memories. So, throughout the story of this game, you will find yourself in this position where you are kind of platforming a lot, moving around in this city of Neo Paris. You're using your memory remix power. Yeah, I know it sounds a little fancy, but it's quite good, I must tell you. And not only does it sound fancy, but it's actually quite fancy. I really loved that part of the game where you were able to play with the memories of people, kind of change them and change their perspective on things, on their life even. That's how good this game is in terms of changing memory. So that's basically the plot of the game. And again, let me remind you, take a look at the reflections on the surface. And this is a game which came out in 2013. This looks absolutely mind-blowing. And this world of Neo Paris, let me tell you that this is by far, one of my favorite, you could say, level designs in a game. I recently played games like Cyberpunk 2077. I kid you not, I like this futuristic world way better than that game. Now, I do understand that there are limitations to this world because you cannot interact with the NPCs. You cannot interact with any of the aspects of the game. Like, even if there are shops that you see, you can't interact, you can't shop, you can't buy anything, you can't trade or anything like that. So that's definitely a limitation of the game. But in terms of the visual fidelity itself, I mean, if I just pan the camera around, look at the detailing that has gone into creating this world. You are going from, you could say, lush city areas to these slum parts of the city as well. So there's a stark contrast in the way the game presents itself in these various levels. So you have a rich neighborhood, and now you've gone from a rich neighborhood over to this poor kind of a slum area. And again, take a look at the reflections on the surface, the water puddles, etc., and just the overall design. I mean, a poor neighborhood or a slum area like this, even the clothes hanging on the you could say the ropes there, the cables, and there is electricity running in those cables, by the way, if you haven't noticed that already. You have birds flying in the background, and absolutely insane. I mean, you have dish antennas, you have these robots who are there, billboards, etc. You noticed how the birds were flying. I mean, it's absolutely insane. The wiring, harnesses, there are NPCs who are just jumping and kind of platforming around near you as well. So it's insane. I mean, that's how good this is. Even in terms of the shadow and the lighting overall, it is mind boggling to kind of know that this game came out in 2013. Now, I have not been a PC gamer, so maybe I'm overwhelmed because I haven't gamed on a PC for a very long time. In fact, the last time I owned a PC was way back in 2009. So you can imagine my excitement when I saw something like this in 2022. Now that's almost you could more than 10 years that I haven't seen a game on PC, and technology has come such a long way that when you take a look at something like this on PC, you are actually absolutely in awe. Like my jaws dropped as to how good this game looked in 2022. Now, I really love this world. Again, my only complaint is the fact that I wish that there was more interaction with the world around you and there was more freedom to roam this beautiful world of Neo Paris. Now, there are a lot of platforming elements that you will come across. There are exploration bits as well. And then there are combat bits, which I may just end up talking about the combat bit maybe towards the end. But it's a fantastic world. I don't understand why this game did not receive that good a rating when it came out in 2013. I think IGN gave it a score of, let's say, 5.9, which is a mediocre score. I'm surprised. I am definitely surprised because I've played games which are far worse than this, which have had like a 6.5 rating. So I'm kind of surprised as to why this game has received 5.9 on IGN. Anyways, I think game ratings on GameSpot or IGN, they're not really the metrics to go with when it comes to enjoying a game, because hey, you can actually enjoy, it's like watching a movie. I mean, some of these movies, they're rated so poorly, but you really end up enjoying the movie at the end of the day. Venom is a good example of that. The first part, not the second one. I didn't enjoy the second part so much, but the first part was really enjoyable. But the critic score for the movie was, I think, really poor. Rotten Tomatoes also did not have a very high rating when it comes to the Venom movie. But hey, I really enjoyed it. So I don't think that a game with a low score is something that you should never pick up or you should never check out. Go by what your gut tells you to do. Now, I was thoroughly surprised, and surprised in a pleasant way when it comes to this particular game, and I really enjoyed my time. In fact, I'm almost halfway through the game, and I've played all of that in just one sitting. That's how good and that's how captivating, you could say, this game was and is for me. Now, speaking of the combat, I know the original reviews that came out, it kind of slammed the combat bit of this game. Let me tell you my personal experience. It's not bad. In fact, there are a lot of combo options that you have in this game, and it kind of adds a complexity to the way you fight. And although it's not as good as something like Arkham, the Arkham series that is, but I think it has a unique style and flavor of its own. The combos can be complicated, and what's really good is that you don't really have to collect health packs, etc. Although they're there for you at various intervals in the levels. But if you have an engaging combat experience, you could just perform those combos and gain health. That's like an incentive that you have to gain health, perform the combos, hit the buttons at the right time, and gain health. That's I think a genius way, instead of scouting around across the game in the level and wasting your time on buying health packs or goods that boost you up in terms of health. Here, just do a good job while you're fighting, and you will get a bonus. I think it's a good way of keeping you involved with the main story instead of going on side quests, etc. I kind of miss these games as well. There was a time when games used to be only 12 hours long or 13 hours long. Now I think people look forward to games which are 40 hours long, 50 hours long. In fact, some of the Assassin's Creed games that I've played, I've spent like 130, 140 hours on these titles. Like Origins, I remember I've spent over 100 hours. Odyssey, I remember quite nicely. I've spent like 140 hours in that game. I mean, can you imagine? But people look for that value for money. They're looking for the bang for the buck, you could say. And these games which used to come out in 2011, 2012, 2013, they never focused on that aspect. For them, deliver a storyline, the game gets over in 10 to 12 hours, that's fine. It can still command that full price for the game, like $70 or $80 that we pay in today's prices. Back then it used to be what, $20, $30, I think. But people used to be happy with that. Now, I think they're looking for more than story experience. They're looking for side quests, etc. So I think the mentality of a gamer has changed with time. But hey, coming back to this game and letting you know what my experience has been with this game, it's been absolutely positive. Don't go by the ratings that you see. I think if you haven't had the chance to play this game, pick it up. You will be pleasantly surprised, just like I have been. And if you have had a PC, or if you have a PC, then I would recommend that you play this game on the PC instead of playing it on the console. So that's it from my side for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts and comments as well. And yeah, it's a wrap for this one. I'll see you lovely folks in my next video. Until that time, I'll say take care, stay safe, and before you go, I would appreciate it if you could hit that like and subscribe button as well, and also that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. So take care, stay safe, and may God bless you all.